How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today I'm really excited because I'm going to be talking about a brand new Junji Ito book, and that is Black Paradox. Really cool. This came out in the States just recently. It's been out in Japan for a while, but it came out just recently in the States, and I guess Viz decided it's Halloween time, we should put out a scary Junji Ito book, and that was really great. This was October 25th, I believe, and on that same day, another company put out the hardcover release of Dissolving Classroom, and I just want to say that was a really great thing. Halloween's in the air. I go down to my local comic book shop and I pick up 2 Junji Ito books at once. That was cool, and I'll get to Dissolving Classroom pretty soon, I hope. But this book, this is one of Junji Ito's longer stories. Junji Ito usually does anthology horror, short stories, and they combine them all together, put them in a book. This one is one of the longer stories. It's about 200 pages long, so it's about as long as Remina or Censor. But anyway, the plot of the book, and I won't do any major spoilers, but basically you get a group of 4 people who meet on a mysterious website, Black Paradox, and they decide to get together in real life to commit group suicide. So yeah, trigger warning there, right? However, their suicide is interrupted by their doppelgangers. Different versions of them show up, and after encountering them, they decide to postpone that. However, one of them will succeed in killing himself, but that's not where his story ends. Quite strangely, he comes back to life, but he spits out large rocks, a mysterious gemstone known as peridonite, and it seems that a doorway to the afterlife has opened up in his stomach, and these stones are literal human souls. And from there, we get a really interesting story where the group debates what to do with the stones, how to maybe get rich off them, and yeah, fighting amongst themselves, but also discovering the stones have a dangerous power behind them, and how do you handle that? And it's a really strange, interesting story, but it really heats up when this character, Dr. Shuga, shows up and starts studying them and doing strange things with them. I think that's really interesting, and definitely when that character gets more play is really where the book starts to get a whole lot better. Anyway, though, I was reading through it, and I have to admit, this is a very strange story, and I mean, if you're Junji Ito fans, yeah, Junji Ito made a strange story, but I knew it was long form. But I got to the second chapter and I was reading through that, and I flipped to the back because I was kind of like, what is this book supposed to be about exactly? And the back, the description is very vague, and you find out it's vague for a reason, and that's because this book is kind of hard to describe. I mean, there are things in here that when you look at them, you're like, okay, what's going on exactly? You know, like, they introduced the doppelgangers, but the doppelgangers don't have much play on the middle of the story. The book's named after the website where all the characters meet, but we never actually see them going on the website or knowing why that's so important. And you don't know at first what direction the story's going to take until it finally, at the end, all goes in one direction. And I have to say, though, you know, despite all those things, it's still a really good story, and I think that it really is important that when you get a really good writer like Junji Ito, that you take risk. You know, if you're good at your craft, go ahead and take risk, tell really strange stories, mess with story structure a little bit. I think it's important that if we want to make continually new, different, and interesting stories, we really do have to make some weird fiction. And yeah, this may be strange. I mean, introducing all these weird and wacky doppelgangers 3 of them have doppelgangers. They're all different, and one of the doppelgangers is literally a robot. That's really weird. But I'm getting to the end of it, and I'm seeing Dr. Shuga make all this crazy stuff. And yeah, it did, you know, I was a little wondering at first where we were going, but man, by the time you get to the second half of this book, the last 3 chapters, and big pieces are starting to shift, big things are starting to open, it really did hook me towards the end of it. So an interesting book, and I definitely would recommend it. If you're new to Junji Ito, it's probably not his strongest thing. I think conventional wisdom is if you're new, check out Uzumaki, Shiver, and Fragments of Horror. But still a really good story, and I do like stories of this length where they're longer, but they're not super long, you know, so I do like the good 200 pagers, you know. Anyway, without further ado, if you guys want to see a little more of this book, I'll flip it open, I'll show you guys a little bit of the story, a little bit of the art. No major spoilers though, but if you want to see the physical release, I'm going to go ahead and switch to the close-up camera, and I'll show you guys a little bit more of this book in closer detail. So, without further ado, to the close-up camera. Alright, here we are inside the castle, taking a closer look at Black Paradox. And right off the bat, I have to say, I really like this release. So far, Viz has put out 3 of Junji Ito's longer form short stories that are about this length: Remina, Censor, and now Black Paradox. And each time they release them in a different way. There's no uniform spines or anything. But I have to say, this is a pretty interesting release. We get obviously the text, and then the text will shift like that. Which that and the fact that the cover design has no clear up and down, I often see this misplaced as this way on store shelves. But there's that, and yeah, there is glitter inside the shiny letters, which I did notice a few of the looser bits came off, and I had to wipe them off. And we get the same thing for the spine there, and there's the Viz logo. And I do like the image. It's all 4 characters in a piece of paradonite at varying distances away from the camera. And you can, of course, turn it around and see all your 4 lead characters. Now, if we open it up, the end papers are a bunch of paradonite spears. It's a little hard to see because they're black on black. And there's the back with this really cool image and the description. I should mention this paper is really thick, whatever paper they're using on the cover, but that being said, it does kind of smudge with fingerprints. It's not permanent, you can scuff it back and it will go away, but it does kind of get little fingerprint smudges on it. But we can see here at the bottom, Teen Plus, Viz signature, and 1999. Overall, I think for a full story graphic novel, especially 200 pages and in hardcover, $20 is a pretty fair price. And I should show you the copyright on the back. Now, strangely, this features a bonus story, and the copyright comes before that. But we get the About the Author section. We get another piece of paradonite, but we also see Black Paradox by Junji Ito from 2009. So yeah, this book came out originally in Japan in 2009, and it's not until October 2022 that we're getting it in the States. So about 13 years. And this is something I have to say with Ito's work is now Viz is putting out like 2 or 3 books a year, and it's really great. The problem is in the process of being rectified, but for so long there wasn't any good releases. I mean, there were some good releases of Ito stuff, but it took a long time to get over here, and I really feel about Junji Ito's work that it's kind of like holding on to a water hose and then letting it go, and now in the States it's all coming out at once. So good that we are getting them, and we're getting them at a pretty fast rate, so it is really exciting to be a Junji Ito fan. But boy, 13 years for this to come over here. That's crazy. There is the title page. I really do like it. The spears, especially, it's black paradox, so they make everything black, and then you get the shiny, glowing peridonite spears. That's really cool. Leads to some fun designs, and it does do this motif with the little boxes that will be in the chapter headings as well. And after that, we get the contents, and we can see that this book is made up out of 6 chapters: Group Suicide, A Peculiar Plioris, Peridonite, Dr. Shuga's Cottage, yeah, that's when he comes in, he's a cool character, the Spirit World Project, and the final chapter, Toward a Dazzling Future. But also, we get this bonus story, Strange Pavilion, and the bonus story, it's only like 4 pages long. It's a nice bonus, but nothing substantial. But it's also in full color, one of Junji Ito's few stories that's fully color. Then again, it is only 4 pages, but a nice little bonus. Nothing, nothing huge, but it is pretty fun. Anyway, I guess without further ado, I'll go ahead and show you guys a little bit of the inside of the story. Like I said earlier, no major spoilers. I do want you guys to have a basic understanding as to what this book's about, but again, no major spoilers. So let's look at a little bit of the story and the art. I'll show you guys more of the earlier chapters, but then the later chapters I'll do a lot less of. But anyway, Chapter 1, and you see that cutout motif, they use that a lot, and the shading here makes me think that might have been originally in color, but it's black and white here. Anyway, we open up with 4 strangers meeting in a public place, and you can see they all said, we're gonna wear black so we recognize each other, because we've not seen each other before in real life. It also gives the characters a cool little identity, a little costume, but they talk to each other, and it turns out they all met each other on Black Paradox and have decided to go commit group suicide. They talk in the car, and we get to hear why they're going to kill themselves, and it's a few different reasons, but we get the main girl, and her name is, I believe, Maruso. Now, one thing that doesn't necessarily translate very well is they all have kind of nicknames because they met each other on the internet. But yeah, I don't really, I'm guessing they're little puns or something that I don't really understand, but they all have their internet names and then their real life names. But she says she wants to kill herself because of a sense of anxiety and terror. She knows the future is going to be terrible, but she doesn't know how. And then we get this guy, and he asks, did you see a doppelganger? And she says, oh, why? And he says he sees his doppelganger. It's someone that looks exactly like him, but he's full of hate. He's just staring at him really, really angrily. And we get to find out a few of the other reasons, and it turns out all except for her have some form of doppelgangers. This guy here, P-Tan, it turns out he is a scientist, and his university made a robot double of him that's better than him in every way, and that gave him a feeling of obsoleteness. Then we get this other girl, Barachi, and she was born with a horrible birthmark that makes her cover up half her face. That's why she does that thing with the hair and glasses. And she says it's not just the birthmark, but he sees another version of herself mocking her in the mirror as well. So she puts, you see how that's her character design, half the hair over the face and these sunglasses. It's a really striking design. But anyway, so everyone but her has a doppelganger, and then she looks over in a car and sees alternate versions of themselves on the way to go commit suicide. So she sees that, and she realizes that she may not be with the right group. Barachi, sorry, said that her birthmark was on the opposite side of where it is, and she tells this one guy about it, and they say, okay, let's get out of here, let's end this, some of these people might be doppelgangers. And it's a really good setup, but that being said, the doppelgangers don't have much to do with the middle of the story. They get out of here, they eventually regroup with all the real versions of them. So yeah, the doppelgangers are actually out there that they were fearing about. The robots out there, the mirror versions out there, and the angry guy that looks just like him, they're all actually real, but they're primarily just in this opening chapter, except for one of them. But anyway, they will eventually go and try to kill themselves again, which this does make for kind of a strange set of characters, because usually characters really don't want to die, but there is times later where they go, hey, if this gets too bad, you know? But they all decide to take sleeping pills this time, and they're lying down, but she, of course, didn't really take hers, and it turns out after the doubles, none of them really trust each other, and almost none of them took it, except for P-Tan over there, so he actually dies. However, when he dies, he wakes up again, and so yeah, he's somehow mysteriously survived death, and he throws up the first bit of paradonite, and they begin to study this spear. It's a gemstone, it's of great value, and Barachi is actually a jeweler, and she's going to work to set up the network. You know, how do we make money? How do we get big off this? However, when she stares in the stones, she gets a glimpse of the other world where they come from, and we get the sense that it is something spiritual, that these stones are in some way connected to the afterlife. Anyway, it's not just one. He begins to throw up a whole bunch of them, and they have to decide how to fence these and how to make the most money possible. And they're going to do things like, there's this celebrity, and she gives him one of the stones, and he starts promoting it even on TV, and they start to go for a ton of money. However, they have a friend that says, we really need to cut these things up and turn them into jewelry. However, when it's a human soul, can you really cut it up? So they hit it with a hammer to see if they can break it, and that has massive, massive energy unleashes, and we see them flying all around the apartment. So yeah, turns out paradonite is dangerous, and it leaves the apartment all burnt up. And the thing is, by the time they realize it has explosive powers, they've already sold a whole bunch of them, and it's going to kind of turn into this weapon all over Japan where these things are exploding, and they will eventually see the doctor and start to try to figure out what's going on there. So, lots of interesting stuff. And overall, yeah, a really good Junji Ito book, but it does take a while to get going. You know, you do have to wonder at the beginning, you know, they're the doppelgangers, then the doppelgangers aren't super important. Then they're throwing up all these spheres, and what are the spheres? What are they doing? What's the importance? Okay, they might be magical, but then by the time you get to the third chapter, by the time you get to the doctor, well, I guess it's appropriate, it turns into science, and you start to kind of try to study the other world phenomenon, and that's where you start to get the rules and, you know, how all the other of them play into it, and it gets to be a much better book in that last half when it finally gets its direction. And overall, I really do like, you know, the strange adventures exploring this world where the paradonite spears come from. And I think it gets really cool in that second half. But yeah, the beginning, you are kind of wondering, where are we going? What is this? But when you get there, when you get there, I think that's really good. So overall, I did like this book. Obviously, not Junji Ito's best thing ever, but a pretty good, engaging story, and again, a good sense of, mystery and not knowing where the story is going. Yeah, it leaves you kind of afloat for a while, but I do, it is unnerving at first, but I do overall like that when stories do surprise me. So a little bit of where are we going, but then realizing that's probably a good thing. I don't know if I'm making sense. But overall, a new release from Junji Ito. Definitely like it. Definitely worth checking out. To everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Junji Ito playlist. In there, I've covered other of his books. I've covered Uzumaki, Shiver, Fragments of Horror, and Smashed. And I have a few other things in there like the Pocket Curse unboxings and stuff like that. So anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Junji Ito playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.